Hello there. Welcome to Craft Central Designs. My name is Dwynn, and today I have for you two fabric decorated autumn pumpkins. One in a vibrant sunflower theme, and the other in a very pumpkin-y, if that's a word, pumpkin theme. Both are created using the crafting pumpkins from Hobby Lobby, but you can cover any pumpkin you wish. These make beautiful, colorful, festive accents to any autumn decor. Welcome to my channel today, and if you're not currently a subscriber and you enjoy this tutorial content, I hope you will consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up and leave me your comments and let me know which one is your favorite. Okay, let me show you how I created these autumn pumpkins. Okay, this is a crafting pumpkin that I had mentioned previously. This pumpkin is obviously meant for crafting. I don't know what the material is that this is made from, but I use them all the time, year after year, for crafting. I have two of them. Obviously, I'm creating two pumpkins. I have here some sunflower fabric that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I got that fabric as well from Hobby Lobby. It's a really pretty fabric with pumpkins on it to go on the pumpkin. I have here a beautiful sunflower, and it's one of those sunflowers from Hobby Lobby that has the little veins in the leaves, or in the petals, I'm sorry. I really love that. I have there some raffia, which I'm going to be making raffia bows, and I have some jute cord. I'm going to be using this to define the lines of the pumpkin. I have there some jute twine, and I have a jute covered wire. I'm going to be using that to create a stem. I have there some burlap ribbon, which I didn't end up using. I'm just going to be making raffia bows for this. Now I have my Mod Podge, which I'm so going to be using that for sure. And I place mine in a squirt bottle, and I have a sponge applicator. I have there a piece of tissue paper and a marker because I'm going to create a pattern for my fabric. I have there some wire, 18 gauge, but I ended up just using that jute covered wire from the Dollar Tree. And I have there some air dry clay. It's the DOS brand. I've had it forever. It's wonderful. It never dries up. As long as you wrap it well, I tell you, I must have had this for like years. I have there some foil, of course, scissors. You're going to need a hot glue gun. And I am going to begin creating my pumpkins. Now, I love to create fabric-covered pumpkins. I've done many covered with all types of materials. So what I'm doing here is creating a pattern of sorts. Now, these pumpkins, at least the ones from Hobby Lobby, have 7 sections. And the sections are all rather equal. So if you're using any kind of pumpkin other than this particular pumpkin from Hobby Lobby, and take a look at the sections on the pumpkin and see if they seem equal. If not, you may have to make more than one pattern. But it's very easy. You just lay it down on the pumpkin, draw down the lines down where the lines of the pumpkin are, then add another 1/2 inch. And the reason for this is to be sure that you have enough fabric for each of the sections of the pumpkin. You don't want to start applying your fabric and realize that you haven't cut wide enough or long enough. So if you put that little extra 1/2 inch, it gives you a little play in your fabric so that you can make sure that you get it from seam to seam or section to section. And then I'm going to cut out all of my pieces of fabric for both of my pumpkins with some nice sharp scissors. All I did was take some straight pins and I put my pattern right on top of my fabric, and then I just cut it out. Now I'm going to create stems for my pumpkins because the stems that come on these pumpkins are not very impressive. So I took a little screwdriver and I poked a hole in the top. Now I'm taking that jute covered wire from the Dollar Tree. I put a little piece of masking tape on the end so I could pop it down into the hole. And I'm going to determine exactly how big I want my stem. Now, I like nice stem with a little bit of a curl to it. You do you. However you like, long you like your stem, just cut your wire that long. So I've placed my wire in there. I created a little curl and a general shape that I want my stem. Then I took some foil. And now there's nothing like foil to create like a shape like this. It works so well. So now I'm just working my foil and squishing it with my hands all the way up to the tip of that wire. And this is going to create a very handsome looking stem for the top of my pumpkins. Now, after I'm satisfied with the shape, and you could continue adding to this if you're not happy with it, I do add a little bit of hot glue right at the base of the foil just to give it something, a little bit of something to adhere to the pumpkin. I am going to be placing some cord around that later, but for right now, I'm just trying to get it to just sit on there without moving around. So I'm adding a little foil to create the shape of the stem that I have in mind. Now I'm going to take that air dry clay and I'm going to take a chunk of that and I'm just going to press it out really flat, enough so that I can cover that stem with that clay. And I have a reason for doing this, and I'm going to explain that here in a moment. If you have a rolling pin that you use for crafting, that would be a great thing to help you out there. With that, I just press mine out with the palm of my hand. Now, after I have a piece long enough and wide enough to fit around that stem, I'm going to wrap my stem with my clay. Now, I can always trim off any excess and then just put it back in the package. So now I'm just going to take my hands and shape my clay right around that foiled stem. Now I'll be able to conceal that seam by simply just squishing the clay with my fingers. Now, one thing that I like to do with my stems is create striations so that it looks like an actual stem of the pumpkin or the peduncle. We know what it's called. I'm just calling it the stem. It's easier that way. Okay, so now I continue to shape until I get it just the way I want it. I cut off any excess. I trim it off down at the base, any extra clay that I have as an overhang. Then I'm going to take some kind of tool, like something with a flat edge that I can create lines or striations in my pumpkin stem. Now this really looks nice after you get it painted, if you have those lines in the clay. And you'll see what I mean here in just a bit. Right now I'm just cleaning up all the excess clay there, getting rid of that. That actually looks better from this side. It looks kind of wonky from overhead, but actually when you see it from this side, it really looks good. Okay, so now I just have this little flat edge tool that I got from, I believe from the Dollar Tree. It came in a set. So I'm just going all over my pumpkin stem, and I'm creating lines. Now, this just makes it look more authentic to an actual wood stem, or whatever a stem is made of. It just looks like wood to me. But so anyway, see, you can see my stem there. I created both of them, and now I'm ready to move on. Now, we are going to begin placing our fabric on our pumpkin. Now, be prepared to get a lot of Mod Podge on your fingers. There's just really no other way to do this. And you have to have some patience to do this part. But honestly, I've done so many of them, and I know that the outcome is so awesome that I really don't mind. But I really have a lot of patience for wrapping these pumpkins. I've done quite a number of them. Now, the one problem there is with these pumpkins is holding on to them on the table. Now, when I'm not demonstrating how to do this, I put them in my lap. That's the way I hold on and I put my fabric on. I put them in my lap, and I can hold them better on my lap. But just for the sake of showing you how I do it here, I'm going to be probably bobbling this pumpkin around on the table, but I'm going to do my best here to show you how to do this. So I start by putting a dab of a stream of hot glue right at the base of the stem. And then I squirt my Mod Podge all over the section. Now I begin smoothing this out with my fingers. My goal is to have the edges reach the seams or the sections that delineate each section of that pumpkin. Now this takes a lot of smoothing out. You have to really stretch your fabric, press it into the Mod Podge, but I tell you that Mod Podge really holds that fabric really well while you're trying to work it onto the pumpkin. Now, you can really manipulate your fabric by pulling it, stretching it. Now, what I like to do is get my fabric on my section all the way down the center. Then I like to work the fabric into what I call the seams or the lines of the pumpkin. Now, very likely you will have bits of excess fabric. So what you want to do is get your fabric on. Notice how I keep reapplying my Mod Podge because this really helps me to get my fabric on there. Now, it's very simply what you're going to do after you have all of your fabric down into the seams or the creases or the lines of your pumpkin, then you can trim off the excess. But obviously you have to wait until you get that now done. Now, don't be concerned if you have tiny little gathers. Sometimes it's really difficult to get the fabric absolutely smoothed out right into the seams. But we're going to be putting jute cord down the center, which will help conceal any little gathers. Don't worry as well that it's absolutely perfect in the seam. Now you can see there on the one side, I just barely made it into the little seam, but that's okay because the next piece right next to it that I put on, I could compensate for that. Now, I know this looks like, it's like, oh my gosh, what a process, but it's so satisfying. If I didn't find it so satisfying, I probably would not have made I don't know, maybe 10 of these in the past few years, at least 10. But they're so pretty. When you get them done, you're just so satisfied with the way they look. So I don't mind. It's only 7 sections. I can endure that for the sake of a beautiful outcome. So I'm going to move on to my next section, do it exactly the same way. Again, don't worry if your seams are perfect, because you are going to be taking some type of cord, whether it's a cotton cord or a jute cord, and delineating all the sections of your pumpkin with that cord. And it really helps to hide any imperfections in your seams. So I'm going about the same method. I like to squirt my Mod Podge right onto my sponge applicator. Now, by securing it at the very top with a little bit of hot glue, that enables me to pull on my fabric. See how I'm starting to take my fingers, work it right into the seams. Don't worry about the excess now. You can cut that off. Once you get the entire section on the pumpkin, then you go about trimming it up. Now my goal is to get my fabric down to the bottom and around the bottom of the curvature of the pumpkin. I do put a little bit of burlap, a circle on the bottom of my pumpkins just to finish them off. But you want that fabric to reach down and around the bottom of the pumpkin. And like I said, you're going to get Mod Podge on your fingers, no doubt about it. It's a very messy process, but I don't mind getting messy. It's okay with me. I do go around with my pumpkins after I have them all completed and all trimmed up. And I don't think I filmed it, but I put a glove on, a rubber glove, and I just squirted Mod Podge down each one of the seams or the lines of the pumpkin, and I took my finger with the rubber glove on, and I just took Mod Podge and just went right down the seam just to finish everything off and make sure everything was all sealed up before I put on my jute cord. Now see how I'm pulling my fabric? And again, this is harder to do on a table. If you put it on your lap, way easier. So I just keep lathering on that Mod Podge, and you can see it seep through the fabric. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. That's all the better because it's helping that fabric to really stick to that pumpkin. That pumpkin's made of, I don't know if it's like a paper mache or I'm not really sure what it is, but it's some type of paper. So that Mod Podge sticks very, very well with the fabric to that pumpkin. You just have to have the patience to get your fabric on there. Pull the fabric, press, manipulate the fabric as need be. Don't worry if you have a little bit of a gather in some of the seams. It's difficult to get it absolutely 100% smooth in the seams. But like I said, you probably didn't even notice that on the pumpkins when you saw them in the intro video, because it just doesn't really show, especially after you get the jute cord on there. So that was section number 2. And I'm going to trim off the excess. Then I'm going to continue on to cover that entire pumpkin. And I also did the other pumpkin with the sunflowers. Then I had to rinse my hands for like 5 minutes to get off all of the Mod Podge. Oh my goodness. But like I said, I don't really mind getting messy. I'm a crafter at heart, so getting messy is just a part of it. But I think these turned out so pretty. I've done these with burlap as well. And oh, they're so, so pretty with burlap. And see the excess fabric there? Just take my scissors, trim it off. Just a lot of manipulating of the fabric with your fingertips. And that's basically what it takes to create this look on the pumpkins. And I was showing you there how I'm going to take that jute cord and put it right down those lines that delineate each section of that pumpkin. And I'm showing you here, I just give it a trim. I don't think that I mentioned that I purchased a half a yard of fabric, and that enabled me to do one pumpkin. I almost forgot to mention that, half a yard of fabric. And as well, I got my fabric when it was on sale at 40% off. I know how to work the Hobby Lobby sales, so I always time everything out in order to do that. Okay, so here is my sunflower pumpkin, loving it. Now what I'm going to do now is paint my stems, because I left my stems with the clay to dry overnight. By the way, I don't think I mentioned that. So I'm going to load my paintbrush on one side with one shade of brown and the other side with another shade of brown. I'm just going to kind of blend my colors in on the pumpkin. Then I also, after I was all done with that, I took a dry brush with some Snow White Waverly chalk paint, and I just dry brushed a little bit of weight over the pumpkin, and it really gave, over the pumpkin stem or the peduncle, whatever we want to call it, and it gave it a really nice look. Okay, so this is my favorite part of doing these pumpkins. I love putting the cord on and seeing how awesome this looks. So I place a dab of glue right at the base of the stem, and I start placing down my jute cord. Now I'm going to do it one little section at a time, until I wrap it all the way around the underside of my pumpkin. Now there will be a little space on the bottom of the pumpkin where everything comes together. The fabric and the jute cord, everything. You could just cut out a piece of felt or a little piece of burlap in just a little circular shape, just to finish off the bottom of the pumpkin. Look at that. That's why it's my favorite part. I'm showing you there that little section there. You could just cut a little piece of fabric, or you could even use, if you have any leftover fabric from your pumpkin, you could also cut out a circle of that. So I start at the base of the pumpkin stem, put a little dab of hot glue, and I place my jute cord down. Now I'm going to do this for both of my pumpkins, and I'm going to use that same jute cord as well on my orange pumpkin. Now you can use whatever type of cord you want on this part, or whatever you want to delineate the lines of your pumpkin with. You do you, whatever you like to do. Now this looked really, really, really awesome with the jute cord on. Now I'm showing you there. I'm going to do the other one as well, and I have that all completed. Now look how beautiful this pumpkin is coming along. It's come a long way from that ugly kind of brown crafting pumpkin that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. But those pumpkins really have a lot of potential. But like I said, you can use any pumpkin. You could pick up a pumpkin from Walmart and do the same thing with it. What I like about these pumpkins is that they have equal sections, and there's 7 sections. And I like that I can count on that. So I can gauge like what I need for, or how much I need for my pumpkin, and I can make just one pattern. Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of raffia, and I'm going to create a raffia bow by creating one loop on each side with a little bit of a tail. I want to say around 6 inches. And then I'm just going to take a pipe cleaner and put it right around the center to secure my raffia bow. Now I like mine a little bit big and to make quite a raffia bow statement, but you do you. Now I used a little bit of a pipe cleaner. You can wrap whatever you like around it, or you can just take a section of raffia and just tie it around there. If you like, you could do it that way as well, or take a piece of wire, whatever you like. Now you're going to have all those crazy raffia strings. You can trim all of that up later after you get everything on your pumpkin. Now I'm going to take my sunflower and place it on the left side of the stem, and I'm going to determine which side of the pumpkin I want to be the front side, and I'm going to base that on the look of my stem, which direction I want it to be facing or pointing. So I wanted to cover up that pipe cleaner, so I just took another piece of raffia, and I'm just going to wrap it around that raffia bow. And I'm going to be creating 2 of these raffia bows, one for each pumpkin, obviously. I just secure that with a little bit of hot glue, and that looks much nicer now. My raffia bow is going to be placed at the base of my stem on the right side, and my sunflower on the left side. I'm just going to place that on the pumpkin with a bit of hot glue. And I created a bow for that pumpkin as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap the base of my stem on my sunflower pumpkin with a little bit of raffia. Now, I mentioned before that I do something to further secure that stem on there. And on this pumpkin in particular, I'm just going to place some raffia around the base. I just use a bit of hot glue to secure that. Now for my other pumpkin, I believe I used some jute twine. For this one, I'm using a little bit of raffia. So I'm just going to secure that, close that up. And now that's another means of securing my stem to my pumpkin. Now I'm going to place my sunflower. Oh, it's so pretty. Off to the left. Put some hot glue, glue that down, and then I'll put my bow on the other side. I did add some pitberry garland to this, and you'll see that I did that later just to look like some tendrils, only it has pitberries on it, but that's okay. And now one thing that I like to do when my pieces of my raffia, that I like my raffia really in thin, scraggly pieces. So if I have any thicker ones in the tails of the bow and also in the loops of the bow, I like to pull that apart And I like my raffia to look very scraggly. So I'm going to place that right at the base of the stem. And I'll show you later how I do the pit berries. But I'm kind of like going back and forth, working on both pumpkins at one time. So you'll see me doing that. Now I'm just giving it a trim because we have a lot of like crazy raffia strings. So now I have to again decide which way do I want my stem. I have my raffia bow ready to apply. Now I placed my raffia bow on, forgetting completely that I wanted to wrap the base of my pumpkin stem, but I did end up doing that as well. And I just used a little bit of that jute twine from the Dollar Tree. Giving it a trim because I have some crazy raffia pointing and sticking out, and really it was too long and really needed a trim. Now I did something a little bit different with the center of my raffia bow for my pumpkin, if you will. And I'll show you that here in just a minute. I couldn't just put a raffia bow on it. It really needed something more. So I placed my bow slightly off to the left, but a little bit more toward the front. I don't like it right on the front of the pumpkin. I like it a little bit off to the left. So again, I paid attention to what direction my stem was pointing, and that's how I determined where the front of my pumpkin was going to be as I decorated it. Now I took a few pieces of that jute twine. I put a little knot in the end, and then that's what I'm going to wrap around the base of the stem. And I'm just going to hot glue that on. I don't have to take off the bow. I'm just going to stick it in there with my little tool, wrap it around, and that will give a little bit more of a finished look to the base of my stem of my pumpkin. I'm also going to be making an additional jute twine bow for a little bit of texture that I'm going to place on top of my raffia bow. And you'll see me doing that here in just a minute, just to add some visual interest to the piece. And I also am going to place 3 little pine cones in the center of my raffia bow. I pick up my pine cones always at Hobby Lobby. They are in the autumn section where all the autumn crafting items are. And they come in a bag. And at Christmas time, you can usually find them as well in the Christmas section at Hobby Lobby. Okay, so I have my stem wrapped. Now I'm going to take, I'm going to take my pit berries. So I got my pit berries at Hobby Lobby as well. Oh, I should do commercials for Hobby Lobby, really. That's all I say is Hobby Lobby this, Hobby Lobby that. So I'm going to take a section of the pit berry and the pit berry garland, and I'm just going to wrap it around a paintbrush handle just to get a little curly look to my pit berries to kind of resemble the look of tendrils on the pumpkin. And I believe that I did 5 of those all together. And I'll just be hot gluing those to the top. I do put a couple on my sunflower pumpkin as well. Now I'm just creating a little loopy bow with my jute twine. And again, this is just to add some visual interest, a little bit of texture. And I'm just creating little figure 8s. And then I'm just going to take a little piece of that jute twine, tie it around the center to finish off that bow. And then I will be gluing that right to the center of the raffia bow. And there I am, just tying a little piece of jute cord around that to hold all those loops together. We're getting toward the conclusion of these pumpkins, but I'm just trying to give you ideas for a variety of ways in which you can decorate these pumpkins. And although the process of Mod Podging all that fabric on is a little bit tedious and certainly a little bit messy, the most fun part of these pumpkins is decorating them. And I think once you get past that Mod Podge and the fabric, you're really going to appreciate this process because it's so much fun. And they turn out so cute. I've done a number of these for gifts, and trust me, they are always very well received. Okay, so I'm going to take that twine. My hand's a little bit out of frame there, but I think it's going to be back. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to place some of my pitberry garland pieces in there now. I'm going to have this one going upward around the stem, securing everything with hot glue. Now, the beauty of that pitberry garland is you can just make it go whatever way you want it to. Down the front of the pumpkin, you can curl it, make it stick up, whatever you like. And it glues very nicely to the fabric of that pumpkin. I believe I ended up using 3 pieces of that pitberry garland on that particular pumpkin. I'm going to hot glue that twine bow there, right down to the raffia, and now I'm going to place on my pine cones. Now I placed one going kind of upward, one going downward, and then one just all snugly placed on the center of those bows. And this adds a really, really nice touch and a very autumny type of touch, if you will, if that's a word, to this pumpkin. I love pine cones. Love using them for autumn decor as well as Christmas. A beautiful evergreen type wreath with pine cones. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. And then I'm going to put my pip berries on my sunflower pumpkin, and we are just about done with these 2 projects. Now, I hope as you watch this, you're thinking about how you would like to create your pumpkins and try this project if you've never done it before. It's really fun to do. I created a pink one of these pumpkins, not surprisingly, last year for my ultrasound lab. Oh my gosh, so pretty. Actually, I think I have a tutorial with the pink pumpkin if you look back on my playlist. All right, here we have the finished pumpkins. Oh my goodness, I love them. And I hope you do as well. And I hope you feel inspired to make some for yourself. You could also use a wired ribbon in a fall theme or a nice burlap ribbon. That's beautiful on these as well. So many options, so much potential, so much fun. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think of the pumpkins and tell me which is your favorite. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Okay, until next time, you all take care.